Hello everyone and welcome. This is Eagle News America. I am Alfred Acenas coming to you from Honolulu, Hawaii. In this broadcast, we have updates from several of our news teams from various parts of the United States. We begin in New York with Joanne Soriano.
New York City on track to reopen June 8, enters fourth day of protests.
In the southern U.S., Philip Toledo from Georgia reports about Mayor Bottom's call on her fellow citizens in Atlanta to do better. Over to the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, we have Myla Simbulan with her report.
Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf signs a disaster emergency declaration in response to the escalation of protests across the state.
And Rio Bodequillo in the Lone Star State of Texas with her update.
Governor Abbott declares state of disaster for Texas on Sunday as anti-racism protests erupt.
Now we have two reports from Southern California. The first is from our LA Bureau's Eva Basalyaje regarding Angelenos joining the nation in protesting against racism and police violence. Stay tuned for that. The second part is from Pearl Rogashon in North Hills.
Mayor Eric Garcetti calls for the National Guard to assist in Los Angeles due to unrest.
And in the Pacific Northwest, Michael Hudson from Seattle updates us on Washington's stay-at-home orders that's end tonight at midnight their time. And for a lighter note, part 3 of our art therapy video DIY on floral arrangements from our Hawaii Bureau. Don't miss that one. We begin our news with an overview of how the world looks right now in relation to the ongoing coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. According to Johns Hopkins, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday, May 31, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is more than 6,100,000. This includes more than 1,700,000 in the U.S. and more than 92,000 in Canada. The virus has claimed more than 371,000 lives worldwide, to include more than 104,000 deaths in the U.S. and more than 7,000 in Canada. Now, on to the news. Thousands of National Guard troops patrolled major cities in the U.S. on Sunday after 5 consecutive nights of protests over racism and police brutality that boiled over into arson and looting, sending shockwaves throughout the country and recently in other parts of the world. President Donald Trump blamed anarchists and far-left activists for the violence, threatening to officially designate one group as terrorists, while local leaders appealed to citizens to give constructive outlet to their rage without destroying their respective communities. Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, said her city was sharply limiting access to its central business district after violent protests. She reflected the exasperation of many officials and ordinary citizens over the turn from peaceful protest to explosive violence. She told CNN she was, quote, hurt and angry at those who decided to try to hijack this moment and use it as an opportunity to wreak havoc, to loot, and to destroy. You should be ashamed of yourselves. What you have done is to dishonor yourself, your family, and our city, end of quote. Now in New York, people look at burnt police cars in the streets after a night of protests demanding tougher murder charges over the death of George Floyd that boiled into arson and looting. Here's Ketcha Grimes and New York University student, saying that her fears even being in her own home. Take a look.
You ready? My heart is broken for Black people. Systematic racism, the insensitivities. This is a different time. This is not the America that I dreamed of growing up in. This is not, I don't even feel safe in my own home. I don't even feel safe in my own home. And I do all the right things. I do all the right things, and still they make choices and just oppress us and continue to oppress us and don't plan on giving any relief or don't plan on even apologizing and acknowledging that they're doing wrong. It's terrible. It's a terrible situation.
Now, meanwhile, Carla Herman, also from New York, says that violence is not the answer. Let's check this.
It's very sad. Not only for what happened to George Floyd, but, you know, I don't believe that violence and destroying property is the answer. So this is my city, and it's sad to see things like that.
Now, the shocking videotaped death last Monday of an unarmed Black man, George Floyd, at the hands of police in Minneapolis ignited a nationwide wave of outrage over law enforcement's repeated use of lethal force against unarmed African Americans. From Seattle to New York, tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets demanding tougher murder charges and more arrests over the death of Floyd, who stopped breathing after Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. Chauvin had been charged with third-degree murder. 3 other officers with him have been fired, but now face no charges. Governor Tim Walz mobilized all of Minnesota's National Guard troops, the state guard's biggest mobilization ever, to help restore order. Police fired tear gas and stun grenades to clear streets of curfew violators last Saturday night in Minneapolis, and National Guard troops protected the state capitol in St. Paul. Walz extended a curfew for a third night, Sunday, and praised police and guardsmen for holding down the violence, saying, quote, "They did so in a professional manner. They did so without a single loss of life and minimal property damage," end of quote. Now, let's shift gears to the ongoing fight against COVID-19. Mexico's Undersecretary of Health, Hugo Lopez-Gatell, the government's chief strategist against the coronavirus, estimates that the country could reach 30,000 deaths as Mexico begins a gradual reopening of its economy. Take a look.
Pero si nos quedamos por ahora con este intervalo de 6,000 a 30,000, como le dije a las senadoras y los senadores, creo que estamos en un intervalo razonable sobre lo que podría ocurrir en México. Pero en términos de la solidez de la comunidad global de salud pública, nos parece extremadamente preocupante. Esta es una opinión personal del subsecretario de Prevención y Promoción, no representa una postura del gobierno mexicano. Está el aspecto financiero. El gobierno de Estados Unidos es el principal financiador de la gubernamental de la Organización Mundial de la Salud, y esto debilitaría mucho la organización.
Now, in other news, and on a more positive note, American astronauts entered the International Space Station on Sunday after a landmark 19-hour journey on the first crewed U.S. spacecraft in nearly a decade, a triumph for SpaceX and private enterprise as a whole. The hatch opened at 1:02 p.m. Eastern Time as Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley conducted final closeout procedures, crossing the threshold about 20 minutes later. Wearing black polo shirts and khaki pants, Behnken entered first, followed by Hurley. They were greeted by fellow U.S. astronaut Chris Cassidy, as well as cosmonauts in the station, all in blue jumpsuits of the space station, in which was launched in 1998 and first inhabited in 2000. When we come back, we'll go ahead with our updates from our news teams across the United States. We will return in a moment. This is Eagle News.
Kahit na maraming kababayan natin ang nasa loob lang ng kanilang tahanan, hindi naman ito naging hadlang upang ipamalas nila ang natatangi nilang galing.
Ano ang nangyari sa'yo?
Sa ating next episode, saksihan ang online audition ng ating mga TNG aspirants. Siyempre, dito lang yan sa pinakamalaking talent competition sa Pilipinas, Tagisan ng Galing. This program is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved Nutrichunks, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo, ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa Nutrichunks. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Lunch and Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Food Standard Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cobe, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cobe, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matinco. R Square Variables Incorporated, CompuZell Computer Services, Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
The successful development of T-Plex, or Tarlac Pangasinan La Union Expressway in 2009, a 4-lane toll road that extends from Tarlac City to Rosario La Union, with an additional approved extension of 56 kilometers all the way to San Juan La Union. This is expected to reduce travel time to Baguio and other provinces in northern Luzon. Realizing the vision of creating a better world for Filipinos fueled the team's focus.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved Nutrichunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutrichunks.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ibang klase ang sarap ng corned beef mo. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Kaya perfect ang sarap. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Welcome back to our broadcast. I'm Alfred Acenas coming to you from Hawaii. New York City is on track to reopen on June 8 as it enters fourth day of anti-racism and police violence protests. Joining us live in New York City at the epicenter is Joanne Soriano. Aloha, Joanne.
Hi, Alfred. Over 2 million New Yorkers have been tested for COVID-19. Yesterday, 58,000 tests were done, and 1,110 came back positive. In terms of fatalities, 56 people passed away yesterday, bringing the total to 23,900 lives lost. New York City, the last New York region to meet all metrics, is preparing for Phase 1 of reopening on June 8th. Phase 1 only allows for construction, manufacturing, wholesale supply chain businesses, as well as retailers for curbside or in-store pickup. 10 additional testing spots will be added to the hotspot areas, which are predominantly low-income and minority communities. Today also marks the fourth day of protests across New York, calling for justice for George Floyd. Protests have taken place all over the 5 boroughs, with the larger protests centered around Barclays Center in Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Union Square and Harlem in Manhattan. Many of the marches have been peaceful, with demonstrators carrying banners and chanting, as can be seen on the footage being shown taken in Brooklyn and Ocean City. At times, the movement became tense, with police clashing with protesters and deploying pepper spray and tear gas into the crowd. The NYPD said last night there were 345 arrests, 33 officers injured, and 47 police vehicles damaged or destroyed. More than a dozen stores in Lower Manhattan were looted. A video surfaced on social media last night of potential looters attempting to break into a Target store in Brooklyn, but the organizers, they stood in front of the door and they stopped them. They said they wanted to keep this nonviolent. Currently, there is no curfew being implemented in New York. Governor Cuomo said change must come, and it starts with standardizing police misconduct policies across America. We need independent police misconduct investigations, one universal definition of excessive force, and publicly available disciplinary records of officers who are accused of misconduct. Mayor de Blasio said, "To those out in peaceful protest, we hear you, and we cannot let violence overtake this powerful movement." This morning, de Blasio met with elected leaders, community members, and police officers in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn to hear their concerns. He said they are worried about encounters between youth and the police, the virus coming back, and when kids will be able to go back to school, and priorities like police accountability and increasing access to food and relief. In New York, Joanne Soriano, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
Mahalo for those updates, Joanne. Now, we all know, you know, of course, New York City being very diverse. I mean, would you say race relations have been improving before the protests erupted? What do you think?
Well, actually, a few days before protests even started, race discussions were already being done because of an encounter which happened in Central Park between a white woman walking her dog and a bird watcher who was black. She was walking her dog leashless in a part of Central Park called the Ramble, where leash is required because of the birds and the plants that are there. So it's allowed to be more natural so that the bird watchers can appreciate it. So Amy Cooper, the woman, she allowed her dog to run leashless in that park. And Christian Cooper was the bird watcher. He asked her to put her dog on a leash. She asked him to stop recording during this confrontation or during their conversation. And it kind of escalated to a situation where she said she would call the police and tell them that an African-American man was threatening her life, which he obviously was not. In the video, you can hear him even telling her, "Please stay away from me, please step back." So in this video, which happened a few days ago, there was a lot of power in her words. It brought to light that there actually is an underlying unspoken racism here, even among the people who don't consider themselves to be racist. And I think that the protests, if done peacefully, are a good way to open that conversation and see how we can make things better.
That's good input there, Joanne. Of course, with New York really, setting the stage, even though like this incident coming from Minneapolis, if New York reacts, I mean, the rest of the country, maybe even the rest of the world reacts in some certain way. But I'm curious, though, when we talked last time about, sensing the vibe, from your part of New York. I know we picked on your balcony last time.
Yeah.
given your recent trips out there, I mean, has the vibe changed? What's different out there now in response to this unrest?
Actually, during the day, let me walk you over there while I give you just a sense of what it's feeling like up here. So it's dark. I don't know what you can
That's all right. Just to give our viewers, she's been out here before. Yeah.
Going down Second Avenue.
Yeah, go ahead.
And you can hear a lot of the chanting and a lot of police sirens. But at night, when I was driving home late, I actually did drive by Harlem, and it was actually really peaceful. There was very few people out. Police were there, and people were there. The residents were there, but they were all just minding their business. There was one street where I guess there was a police precinct, and the police had blocked off the street completely. And they stood in front of the street with barricades, I guess, just to make sure that nothing would happen. But it was quiet as a pin drop.
Okay, thanks much, Joanne. It's great that you're keeping the pulse on the big city in the U.S. We appreciate you updating us, there in New York City. Mahalo, Joanne. You take care, please.
Thank you. You too.
Now, over to Atlanta. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms calls on her fellow citizens to do better after days of unrest due to protests sparked by the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police. Philip Toledo of our Georgia Bureau has his report.
Thanks, Alfred. As the country is faced with unrest in the wake of the death of George Floyd, protesters took to the streets this weekend in Atlanta, hoping to bring about change. The city of Atlanta is no stranger to peaceful protests. Civil rights leader and icon Martin Luther King Jr. was actually born here, and his monuments and historical sites are across the city. Now, this weekend, first-hand accounts of individuals at the gatherings described thousands of people gathering to protest racial injustice. Though they faced off with police, things were generally peaceful. However, as night began to fall on Friday, some in the crowds began to vandalize and destroy property, prompting law enforcement to enact stricter crowd control measures. Then, as the situation escalated with police vehicles and other property catching fire, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms passionately pleaded with those protesting in the city. Let's take a look.
So what I see happening on the streets of Atlanta is not Atlanta. This is not a protest. This is not in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. This is chaos. A protest has purpose. When Dr. King was assassinated, we didn't do this to our city.
The mayor became visibly upset as she brought up the memory of George Floyd and called on Atlantans to do better.
You are disgracing our city. You are disgracing the life of George Floyd and every other person who has been killed in this country. We are better than this. We're better than this as a city. We are better than this as a country.
Joining Mayor Bottoms was popular rapper, activist, and prominent community member Killer Mike, who also urged those upset to stop any violent acts.
So I'm duty-bound to be here to simply say that it is your duty not to burn your own house down for anger with an enemy. It is your duty to fortify your own house so that you may be a house of refuge in times of organization. And now is the time to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize.
Instead of looting or burning, he offered up different courses of action. Let's take a look.
It is time to beat up prosecutors you don't like at the voting booth. It is time to hold mayoral offices accountable, chiefs and deputy chiefs. Atlanta is not perfect, but we're a lot better than we ever were, and we're a lot better than cities are.
As protests continued Saturday and into Sunday, There were less reports of violent acts, even though crowds still numbered in the thousands. Now, keep in mind, all of this is happening during the coronavirus pandemic, as trends of daily new cases in Georgia are still moving upwards towards early April levels, even though daily deaths are trending downward. In speaking with others in my community, there are many that are afraid, anxious, and hurting due to everything that is going on. I think this is an important point for all of us to remember. There are a lot of people hurting right now. It could be for different reasons, but we all need to do our best to bring decency and respect to one another as we go through the events of today. In Atlanta, Georgia, Philip Toledo, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Much appreciated for that update and final thoughts, Philip. Please take care of yourself and your loved ones there in the Atlanta area. Now let's go back up north, still on the East Coast. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf signs a disaster emergency declaration in response to the escalation of protests across the state. We have with us Eagle News correspondent Myla Simbulan from Swarthmore. Myla, aloha.
Thanks, Alfred. Yesterday, violent protests erupted in different parts of the state. There were stop looting, smashing of windows and doors, arson, properties were destroyed, and people were hurt. That's why Governor Tom Wolf signed a disaster emergency declaration to provide assistance to cities in response to the escalation of protests in multiple parts of the state. Let's watch.
Again, yesterday was a challenging day for the Commonwealth. Many Pennsylvanians joined together to speak out against injustice, and they made their voices heard peacefully. In some of our cities, however, including Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and Pittsburgh, some people took advantage of these peaceful protests, and they incited violence and looting. I worked closely with these cities and with others. I activated the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center, and I signed a disaster declaration to provide any assistance necessary to the affected cities. And our state police helped in response along with our Capitol Police right here in Harrisburg. Working with the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, and you'll hear from Randy in just a minute, and the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, at the request of some municipalities, we activated National Guard members, again, to keep our communities safe.
Governor Wolf also declared a disaster emergency declaration and activated the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center at the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, or PEMA, which will track emergency operations in Dauphin, Philadelphia, and Allegheny counties. Director of PEMA, Randy Padfield, also explained mutual aid, resource requests, and use of the National Guard across the state. According to Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney, this emergency declaration will help Philadelphia access resources and police support from other jurisdictions, including other states, as we manage the impact of this weekend's demonstrations. Mayor Kenney also announced citywide curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., which initially was announced at 8 p.m. but later changed to 6 p.m., and only essential persons are permitted to go outdoors. All businesses in Philadelphia were also ordered to remain closed as police officers and city officials try to control the violent riots. National Guard is expected to arrive tonight in an anticipation of more violent protests. In Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Myla Simbulan, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Mahalo for that report, Myla, and just for the sake of our audience, as far as Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. Now, the big cities that most of us are familiar with in Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh out west and Philadelphia out east, where you're closer with, which is I think 30 minutes from Swarthmore. Is that correct?
That's correct, Alfred.
Yeah. So now, of course, being closer to Philadelphia, what are some of the reactions, in light of the protests there in multiple locations, even in your neighborhood, anything that you've observed?
So there's sadness and anger, but mostly disappointments that these protesters opted to turn a supposedly peace protest and turn it into a violent, hurtful, and disastrous one. I mean, there's nothing wrong in speaking out against oppression or injustice, making our voices heard, but peacefully. So in where I'm living right now, it's in the suburb. It's there. I mean, there's not even any police presence right now. But I don't. In Philadelphia, every time I watch the news, you can see all the police, the heavy police presence, which you would feel that really they're anticipating more violent protests. So that's what's happening right now in where I'm at.
Well, you take care of yourself and your loved ones there, Myla, and we hope to hear from you with other reports with this unrest and, of course, the ongoing pandemic. Please take care of yourself, all right? Thank you for the report.
Thank you, you too. Thank you, Alfred, you too.
Coming up, we got more updates across the United States. Stay with us.
Ein sonniger Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliet Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können, die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammenhalten. Sie wertschätzen.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside, and I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor, or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
Mga kababayan, naharap na naman po tayo sa mabigat na pagsubok na ito. Ito yung COVID-19.
I hope everyone's okay. I hope everyone's safe.
Nandito po kami para hikayatin pa po kayo na maging matibay.
Mas maging matatag po tayo and just stay positive po sa lahat po ng nangyayari ngayon.
Mga mahal kong kababayan, lampasan po natin, pagtagumpayan po natin ang pagsubok na ito.
Stay strong sa panahon po na to.
Huwag tayong mawawalan ng pag-asa.
At inihikayat din po namin kayo na sana makinig po tayo sa ating gobyerno.
Sumunod muna tayo sa gobyerno dahil yun yung pinakamainam na paraan para hindi na lumagana pa yung virus.
Let's all stay at home.
Spend time with our loved ones, with our families.
At higit po sa lahat, make sure to pray. Pray for everyone. Pray for everything that is going on right now, especially our frontliners po who are sacrificing their lives to take care of everything.
Higit sa lahat, patuloy tayong lumapit, magtiwala at manalangin sa ating Panginoong Diyos.
Lagi tayong manalangin dahil yung po ang may pinaka-mainam na solusyon sa lahat po ng mga problema natin.
God bless you and your family. Please stay strong and keep our faith.
Tuloy po ang laban.
Hindi mo ba alam, mauubos daw ang mga tissue products? Bakit naman? Ang raw materials daw ng mask at tissue products ay iisa lang. Saan naman galing ang balitang yan? Ay basta, narinig ko lang din. Maraming dilim kayang nagpo-post sa Facebook at Twitter, kaya kung ako sa'yo, kumuha ka na din. Sige na't mauna na ako sa'yo
Huwag basta-basta magpaniwala
sa mga nakikita
o nababasa sa social media.
Magsaliksik at i-verify ang lahat ng impormasyon
Nakukuha sa internet.
Tandaan,
maging responsable tayo
sa paggamit ng social media
nang hindi magdulot ng panic sa iba.
Kung paanong dapat labanan ng COVID-19.
Ay gayon din ang ating pagsugpo
sa black propaganda
at maling impormasyon.
Dennis Lu,
Lou Omelda,
General Fartosa,
Tyranel Pililu,
Hannibal Arevalo,
EBC,
Japan, Euro. We live in interesting times.
Mga kababayan, naharap na naman po tayo sa mabigat na pagsubok na ito. Ito yung COVID-19.
I hope everyone's okay. I hope everyone's safe.
Nandito po kami para hikayatin pa po kayo na maging matibay.
Mas maging matatag po tayo and just stay positive po sa lahat po ng nangyayari ngayon.
Mga mahal kong kababayan, lampasan po natin, pagtagumpayan po natin ang pagsubok na ito.
Stay strong sa panahon po na to.
Huwag tayong mawawalan ng pag-asa.
At inihikayat din po namin kayo na sana makinig po tayo sa ating gobyerno.
Sumunod muna tayo sa gobyerno dahil yun yung pinakamainam na paraan para hindi na lumagana pa yung virus.
Let's all stay at home.
Spend time with our loved ones, with our families.
At higit po sa lahat, make sure to pray. Pray for everyone. Pray for everything that is going on right now, especially our frontliners po who are sacrificing their lives to take care of everything.
Higit sa lahat, patuloy tayong lumapit, magtiwala at manalangin sa ating Panginoong Diyos.
Lagi tayong manalangin dahil yun po ang may pinaka-mainam na solusyon sa lahat po ng mga problema natin.
God bless you and your family. Please stay strong and keep our faith.
Tuloy po ang laban.
Turuan din natin ang mga bata ng tamang paghugas ng mga kamay. Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganun din ang iyong hinlalaki, kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos ay iyong palapulsuhan. Gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
Protektahan ang sarili laban sa coronavirus disease o COVID-19.
Narito ang ilang paalala.
Takpan ang ilong at bibig sa tuwing babahing at uubo. Gamitin ang looban ng siko. Kung gagamit naman ng tissue, ay tiyaking maitapon ito agad sa tamang basurahan. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong o bibig. Ugaliing maghugas ng mga kamay gamit ang sabon at umaagos na tubig o magpahid ng alcohol-based sanitizer.
Gumamit ng face mask kung ikaw ay may ubot sipon. O kaya naman ay may inaalaga ang pasyente na mayroong simptomas ng respiratory illness. Itapon ng gamit na face mask sa tamang basurahan.
Sundin ang social distancing. Panatilihin ang 1 metrong layo mula sa ibang tao, lalo na kapag nasa labas ng bahay. Kung maaari ay umiwas muna sa mga matataong lugar.
Laging tandaan, mahalaga ang kalinisan upang sakit ay maiwasan.
Malaking tulong sa bawat pamilyang Pilipino ang home gardening.
Hindi lang makakatipid dahil hindi nabibili ng kakailanganing pagkain, makakaiwas pa sa kakulangan sa nutrisyon.
Pero kung ang bawat pamilya ay nagtatanim kahit sa maliliit na container o paso, nakasisiya itong tingnan, lalo na kung ito'y iyon na ang aanihin.
Kapag may kalamidad, tumataas ang halaga ng pagkain at nagkukulang ang supply nito.
Kung ang lahat ay may panahon sa pagtatanim, kahit sa sariling bahay o sa bakuran, pwedeng ibenta ang sobrang ani.
Kung lahat tayo ay nagtatanim,
hindi ka na mamumroblema sa budget.
Tiyak pa ang seguridad sa pagkain.
Welcome back to Eagle News. I'm Alfred Acenas from Hawaii. We continue with our updates across the U.S. Going on now to Texas. Governor Greg Abbott declares a state of disaster for the state on Sunday as anti-racism protests erupt. Joining us is Rio Modequillo from the capital city of Austin. Aloha, Rio.
Aloha, Alfred, and a big howdy to you from the Lone Star State. In a press conference on Saturday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott condemned the actions that led to the senseless loss of George Floyd and encouraged Texans to exercise their First Amendment rights, but to also maintain order and protect private property. Governor Abbott sent state resources and 1,500 Department of Public Safety officers to aid law enforcement in the cities of Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin, where protests were being organized. On Sunday, however, the governor declared a state of disaster for all Texas counties in response to violent protests, that took place over the weekend, threatening public safety and causing property loss and damage. Under this declaration, the governor had the ability to designate federal agents to serve as Texas peace officers. He announced that FBI tactical teams, thousands more state troopers, and 1,000 National Guard have been ordered and to assist the DPS officers and police in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. The governor stated that Texans' First Amendment rights are absolute and will always be protected, but violence, vandalism, and looting will not be tolerated in this state, and those found in violation of the law will be arrested and prosecuted. Here in Austin, Texas, protests took place on Saturday and Sunday. What began as a peaceful march in downtown Saturday escalated when the growing crowd blocked the flow of traffic through Interstate Highway 35, which is a major thoroughfare. We spoke to Austin residents to get their take of events this weekend. Let's take a look.
My name is Irene Talioga. I live here in Austin for about 28 and a half years now. Yesterday I was driving home from San Antonio, and as I was approaching Austin, the downtown area of Austin, I noticed the traffic was getting bad, and I turned on my radio and I heard that there has been a growing number of protesters on the death of George Floyd. And they gathered in the state capitol, and immediately the number grew, in the Austin area, especially along the main freeway of IH-35 here in Austin. So they blocked the freeway, and the cops, the police officers, warned the protesters that they have to clear the freeway, and they used some kind of spray, looks like tear gas, and they dispersed. Immediately, some ran south side of town and north side of town. The crowd just went, in different directions. The police officers were on high alert, and the state capitol as well, the state troopers. I noticed there's also helicopters making sure that the demonstration is peace, and they're trying to do this peacefully. There are a series of demonstrations happening throughout the nation, and including here in Austin. We are trying to keep the city safe, but these protesters, they want to be heard. And we hope that our city officials, local government, will continue to talk about how they can keep, the community safe. The neighborhood, of course, they're very nervous about it. The residents here in Austin, including, the people that live around the area where the demonstration happened, and hopefully that this will come to an end.
I know there's protests going on in Austin right now because George Floyd's death. And today while I was driving around the neighborhood, I saw a girl was holding a sign with Black Lives Matter. I think that's nice to do a peaceful protest instead of destroy your city, burning down a building. And people don't forget there's still a coronavirus going on right now. And while I was driving with my neighborhood, I think it's fine. I don't see anybody mean to each other. People still nice, very peaceful, and respectful.
The Austin Police Department stated on Twitter Saturday, while most of the demonstrations have been peaceful, some people have thrown rocks, bricks, eggs, water bottles, and Molotov cocktails. The Austin Police Department has used less lethal rounds during the course of events. Chief Brian Manley announced on Twitter Saturday, "Our officers are working to keep the community safe with compassion, professionalism, and respect as the demonstration continues downtown. We appreciate peaceful protests and will continue providing a safe space for the community to express emotions." In Austin, Texas, I'm Rio Marikio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Alfred?
Mahalo, and thank you very much for that update there in Texas. Now, just from my recollection, Austin is the capital, but it's not the largest city, correct? You have Dallas up north, and then Houston down south, which are much larger cities.
Yes.
So I would imagine the level of violence is more visible in those cities compared to Austin. But you mentioned some activity on Saturday and today, Sunday. Has there been any activity already going on around Thursday, Friday time frame that you can recall?
Around Thursday, Friday, not that I know of, but from the past couple of days, it has the big, I guess, announcement of activity was Saturday, especially with everyone starting off as a peaceful protest, and then it became more people became more on edge, and more people gathered, and that crowd that ended up slowing down our traffic on I-35. You know, Alfred, from what I've seen, though, as of today, the atmosphere is, you know, from people, they're very cautious, especially with what is happening, everything that's happening in our country with the pandemic and, you know, this unfortunate situation that had happened.
Yeah, that's right, Rio. Of course, the pandemic. Oh, by the way, tomorrow, June 1st, is the start of hurricane season. So you have your state there has its hands full. So you guys just prepare what you can and be safe. Thank you again for that update, Rio, and you take care, please.
Thank you, too.
Now, on to the West Coast in LA. First of our two reports. Angelenos joined the nationwide protest against racism and police violence. Our own correspondent Eva Pasalyaje was at Mariachi Plaza yesterday and has this report. Take a look.
Say his name, George Floyd! George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd!
Protests continue in Los Angeles, California, where demonstrators voiced their dissension stemming from alleged police misconduct.
I'm protesting the death of George Floyd and all the people who've been killed recently by the killer cops.
I think the injustice that's been going on within my black community as well as other minority communities in LA and just throughout the whole entire nation.
Specifically the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis due to police brutality, kneeling on his neck for 7 minutes when he stated that he could not breathe.
Well, not just George Floyd, that's the impetus, right? This has been systematic here in the United States for well over 400 years, how we treat people, black people in particular. George Floyd, his senseless, horrible death, was the catalyst.
Me as a white person, I'm here to support these voices of color, to help raise them up and just be here, as an ally.
An estimated 300 people peaceably gathered at Mariachi Plaza in the Boyle Heights district, holding signs expressing what they hope to accomplish by this assembly.
That us family members experience every single day.
Letting our voice be heard, by letting the powers that be know that this is not acceptable, that something needs to be done. This has been going on for hundreds of years, where minorities and poor people are trampled upon by the police, and there has to be an end to this. It can't keep going like this, and dishonoring what should be a good profession, people who protect the citizens.
To put work in, to put effort. It's not about being quiet and complacent anymore. We're growing so much as a country, and it's just seeing that there is another reality that exists where there's justice for all, and just believing that that is completely possible and having the hope to get there by putting the work in. And that means putting time and research and just moving.
Not having respect for another person. It just comes down to a human issue. Having people in positions that should not be in positions. A lot of hate and people not willing to step up and say something, especially those that have the voice to be able to say something to help. We have a long ways to go, but it doesn't end, and we can't stop.
we should not be fighting to exist. So I'm hoping to build awareness that everybody here, we're all humans. Why can't we just live our lives? So building awareness about the fact that I'm human, that I'm scared, I am worried about everybody in my family and families that I've never met. And if I can do something to build awareness, then I will do it.
It's very difficult. I mean, like, I go into stores and, like, I get looks. If I have a backpack, it's even worse that way because they just have a thought that I'm going to steal something. I have the cops called on me one time when I was in a neighborhood because they thought I looked suspicious. And the cops approached me and they apologized for whoever called the cops on me because I lived in that neighborhood. And it was just like, it happened when I was 16 years old. So even though I was still learning the whole process of like what it's like to be black in America, it really did open my eyes more to like how bad it is for us black people to even be in America. Many cops, they have a lot of power trips. I've been through the same situation as well with cop, you know, just having more power over me. So it's not just a race thing, in my opinion. I feel like it's just the whole police department, not everybody in the police department, but many cops just having, you know, too much power in their hand and be able to control the situation whatever they feel.
Make sure that these law enforcement understand that they cannot be taken.
Aside from allegations against law enforcement, protesters also expressed opinions on how to address issues of racism and how to uphold the fair and respectful treatment of every individual.
Racism happens every day, and I think more and more we just need to listen to voices of color.
Let's get uncomfortable. Let's understand why we're uncomfortable. Let's move forward.
If everyone could just understand that we're all human and we're all people, then I feel like it would be a different situation and things would be better.
As long as there's no justice, there won't be any peace. And that's just a fact of life.
Speak up, speak loud, and protect your family, your friends, and your community.
People are tired. They're hurt. They're crying out. It's not an act of rebellion. It's an act of frustration. And it's time that we start listening. Like, you know, we're all different. We all come from different backgrounds and respect. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we all deserve to be respected and to be treated with equal.
The death of George Floyd has sparked outrage across the nation, inciting riots, looting, and violence. But to the relief of the residents in this neighborhood, today's protests never escalated into hostility. In Los Angeles, California, Eva Basalyahe, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Mahalo, and excellent report there, Eva. Please take care over there. Still in Southern California, LA Mayor Eric Garcetti calls for the National Guard to assist in the city due to the unrest brought about by what is hoped to be peaceful protests against racism and police violence. Joining now from North Hills is Pearl Regashon. Aloha, Pearl.
Thank you, Alfred. Protests in Los Angeles County, California over the death of George Floyd escalate into unrest, violence, and looting with clashes between police and protesters in areas like the Fairfax district and other areas of the city. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti requested assistance from the state. California Governor Gavin Newsom approved the deployment of the National Guards to Los Angeles, both on the city and county level, proclaiming a state of emergency. Just today in Santa Monica, riot police and SWAT formed lines to keep crowds away from the well-known 3rd Street Promenade. At 4 p.m., curfew was imposed in Santa Monica, but many refused to disperse. Objects and smoke bombs were thrown at law enforcement, who responded by intermittently firing little rounds and tear gas into the crowds. At this hour, developments in this story are still unfolding. Due to the continuing uprising, the Los Angeles mayor issued another citywide curfew this Sunday evening from 8 p.m. until 5:30 in the morning of Monday. On a later update, a countywide curfew was also ordered to supersede the citywide curfew to 6 p.m. Sunday early evening to 6 a.m. Monday morning. Mayor Garcetti stated, "I will always protect Angelenos' right to make their voices heard, and we can lead the movement against racism without fear of violence or vandalism. We are extending the curfew to protect everyone's safety and help our first responders to keep the peace." Not all protests and not all protesters have been hostile. Just like what you saw from our Los Angeles crew reporting from the Mariachi Park protest in Boyle Heights district of Los Angeles, people there kept their rally peaceful and were even mindful to follow the COVID-19 safe practices, wearing face coverings and keeping 6 feet physical distancing as best they could. In Los Angeles County, the number of new cases increased with 1,379 newly reported cases and 25 new deaths. The total number of confirmed cases in the county are 54,996 with 2,362 deaths, as announced today by the Los Angeles Health Department. Meanwhile, the state of California now has 111,807 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 4,171 deaths, as recorded by Johns Hopkins University and Medicine Coronavirus Resource Center. In North Hills, California, Pearl Rogacion, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Mahalo, and thank you for that update, Pearl. And again, salutations to Eva and your LA team there with that up close report. It's encouraging to see the diversity of the crowd there at Mariachi. But I did notice something that wasn't that they didn't capture, and I just wanted to kind of confirm with you. Was there any police presence at all?
Yes, Alfred, there were police presence, but the police officers stayed a couple of blocks away. Thankfully, law enforcement assessed that the protest was not threatening, and so they were able to keep their distance.
Okay, much appreciated. Now, and I kind of follow, what's going on, there in the West Coast, LA in particular. And I think there was an effort to reopen some businesses, the local economy there. Now, how much has the looting hurt these local businesses? That I guess some of them were just barely opening. What's your feedback there?
Well, Alfred, even today there were protests and unfortunately, again, looting. These businesses have suffered property damage and theft of merchandise, but even businesses that haven't been looted are affected because there's a curfew. So instead of being open for business and making money, these businesses are once more forced to shut down.
Yeah, it's sad. It's been interesting to see how this thing develops and how far this unrest unfolds. Meanwhile, you take care of yourself there and your family as well as your whole LA team. Again, we appreciate that live update. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Alfred. You too.
Now, moving up to still on the West Coast, up to the Pacific Northwest. Washington State stay-at-home orders ends tonight at midnight. In Seattle, we have Michael Hudson for the details. Michael.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I wanted to give you some current COVID-19 metrics for Washington State before I delve into the top story. So as of today, the current positive cases are at 21,349, while the death toll is at 1,118. As of tonight at midnight, the stay-at-home order, which was originally enforced by the state governor, Jay Inslee, will expire, which means that Washington citizens are free to spend more time outside of their homes without any mandatory restrictions. As for the businesses, most of the state have been granted permission to move on to phase 2 of the 4-phase Safe Start program that was issued earlier this month by the state governor as well. This essentially means that restaurants, taverns, barber shops, tattoo parlors, and nail salons, things of that nature, can open up to 50% capacity, while other retail shops can open up to 30% capacity. Most of these counties that are currently in phase 2 can now apply to move on to phase 3 as early as June 3rd. So if certain COVID-19 metrics are met, they will be allowed to move on to this next phase. This will give business the opportunity to increase their capacity even more. On June 8th, all grocery stores and other small businesses will be required to wear face masks as the state continues to unite in ensuring that the COVID-19 cases do not exponentially grow and go back to where they once were when all this chaos started. According to Mr. Inslee, we are able to do this thanks to millions of Washingtonians pulling together in the face of sacrifice and suffering and doing their part by staying home. But this does not mean that we are returning back to normal. It means that after 3 months, we are successfully moving forward. So with that being said, though the state is gradually moving forward, if it is still important that that the Washingtonians continue to maintain social distancing, impeccable hygiene, and follow the state's bylaws so that the state can beat this virus for good. So we'll continue to do our best, giving you anything and everything COVID-19 when it comes to Washington State, and we wish you all the very best. Reporting from Seattle, Washington, I'm Michael Hudson, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Mahalo for that update, Michael, and we'll see you again in future broadcasts. And looking forward to other reports going on there in Washington State. Now, before we cut for a break, we just actually got another item. This was just handed to me by our producers, actually from our Las Vegas bureau, in which, unfortunately, they're not immune from all this unrest that's going on around the country as they join other U.S. cities in protest against violence and racism. So we have Anna Cui and her team with this update. And so go ahead, let it play, please.
We are on day 3 of demonstrations here in Las Vegas, Nevada over the death of George Floyd. We are at the corner here of Mandalay Bay and Las Vegas Boulevard, where people are gathered. What it looks like right now is a peaceful protest with a lot of police officers standing by.
Say that I agree with what they're doing. As far as like looting and destroying property, I don't agree with that.
And according to a press release from the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, there were about 2,000 people who protested last night at downtown Las Vegas. And it started out as a peaceful demonstration. However, towards the end of the night, some protesters started breaking store windows and breaking cars, and one business was reported to have been looted. Because of this unrest, the 300 police officers that were deployed throughout downtown Las Vegas ended up deploying tear gas and arrested 103 people. We will continue to give you an update of the development of this story. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Mahalo, Anna Cui, and a team of Las Vegas for that the developing story. It just goes to show to our audiences around the world that this situation in the U.S. and even other parts of the world, as we're hearing, is still developing. It's very fluid, and we'll do our best here on Eagle News to bring that to you as soon as they become available. And to the Las Vegas team, as with the other teams out there that continue to cover, please be safe out there. Please remember there's still a pandemic going on. Now, excuse me, on to a more positive note again. When we come back, part 3 of our floral arrangement tutorial, courtesy of our Hawaii Bureau over here. We'll be right back. Don't go away. I'm out for the sentence from Hawaii. This is Eagle News. Finally, as we wrap up this broadcast, we strive to end it with a positive note. And here is the last but not the least of a 3-part series on how to make floral arrangements of different shapes and sizes while staying at home in these interesting and challenging times. Brought to you once again by our EBC Hawaii Bureau. Check it out.
I think these are Ecuadorian roses. But if your roses are drying and you don't know what to do, don't throw it away. You can reuse the petals, as you can use it in your potpourri, as make it potpourri and put in your bathroom or in your bathtub. But the best way to remove all the petals, normally we do it each one. But the easiest way is to just grab in the back, twist, and then here you go. These are all your petals. Now let's do a flower arrangement for this vessel. By the way, all these greeneries are from our yard, so you can get a lot of greeneries. And the grass also, this is very useful. Sometimes you don't pay attention to this, but you have a lot in your yard. Just go outside your house and go look for greeneries or foliages, then you can utilize in your flower arrangement. Now we're gonna start with the roses. We'll do arrangement. I'll just stick flowers to roses. The focal point in this arrangement will be these roses. But make sure on this floral foam, once you take out your flower, don't put it back where you get it from, because it's gonna have a lot of air on the foam, because this is a wet foam. We soak this foam, that means there's a lot of water, and the water will absorb, goes into the flowers, and it's gonna be hydrated, well hydrated. So you can see all these pink, big pink flower there, roses. Now, what we're gonna do next is, this is the first layer here. Now I want to reuse some of this as to cover the stem. Okay. Whatever design length you want, go ahead and do it. In flower arrangement, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're interested on something, or you're very fascinated on doing something, give it a try. Especially now that you're staying home. Maybe you can practice, just pick up flowers from your yard, then practice. Just keep practicing. Now I'm sticking all this baby's breath around. I'm trying to cover the stem of the flower arrangement. You can see now, first layer is the roses. We're creating a second layer, which is the baby's breath. And guess what we're gonna put on the bottom? Any idea? we have to put the greeneries. That's where the purpose of these greeneries to cover the stem or the flower hole. Now these are from my yard, so you can utilize all this here. Some they asking which one we're gonna put first, the greeneries, the fillers, or the flower itself. It's up to you. Okay, and this is gonna be the drama of this arrangement. You know the grass I was talking about earlier? Just growing from your yard. Maybe just pick it. So, voila! This is our flower arrangement. Okay. And one more that I'm gonna show it to you, the DIY. If you have a lot of foliages like the family of Monstera leaf, only need a clear glass vase, specifically the vertical one, the tall one, depending on the height of your ceiling of your house. That if you have a big house or tall ceiling, I would suggest to have this. Just this one centerpiece and it changed the whole room. I just cut this from my yard, front yard, and then just stick them inside. Inside there is my container, and then that's it. Alright, till next time, hope you enjoy and you learn something from my DIY in flower arrangement. Bye!
Mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much, Lemmy and the Alegado family for that wonderful feature. Now, for those who may have missed the first two parts, you can check out those two parts and our previous broadcasts and our features on our Eagle News channel on YouTube. Now, before we sign off, let's continue to thank our frontline and essential workers who continue to look out for our health and safety, not only in response to COVID-19, but especially in light of recent events of uncertainty in our communities, especially across the United States. And a shout out, as you may have seen some pictures of graduates of the historic class of 2020. We are proud of you, and we wish you the best for a bright future. Even in these challenging times, there's always something to look forward to. So hats off, congratulations, and a round of applause to our graduates of the class of 2020. With that, stay tuned for our other news broadcasts here on EBC. We thank you for watching Eagle News America. I am Alfred Acenas from Hawaii. We live in interesting times. Aloha.